There are some things about the moon that NASA doesn't want you to know. If you keep watching this video, I will share them with you. This is not propaganda. Everything I'm going to tell you in this video is backed up by scientific evidence. There is nothing here that is made up or has any basis in conspiracy theories. However, mainstream media tends to ignore these facts because they don't really fit into the narrative that they have been told. So today, I want to show you what NASA is not telling you about the moon. The first thing that NASA is not telling you about the moon is that it can change shape. Let me show you this photo. In this photo, the moon looks like a huge sphere. But now let's take a look at this one. The moon suddenly looks very different. The question is, how can the moon change its shape? How can we be sure that the moon is actually round? Keep watching, and I will answer these questions. This is an official photo from NASA of the moon taken from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. The image was taken in 2009 and shows something very strange. Why does the moon have straight edges? It looks more like a square than a sphere. NASA says that the moon looks like this because of a camera distortion. But why does the camera have to distort the image in this way? If you just change the color balance of this image, it looks much more realistic. A lot more like a sphere. NASA itself admits that the moon should look more like this than like this. But the reason why NASA shows us images of the moon that look like a square is very simple. It's to hide the fact that the moon is not actually a sphere. The moon has been hollowed out, and it is actually an artificial construction. It's not natural. If the moon were a real sphere, then it would not cast a perfect circular shadow on the Earth. But we all know that sometimes the shadow that the moon casts on the Earth during an eclipse is very strange. It takes on all kinds of weird shapes. How can you explain this if the moon is a sphere? In order to explain this, NASA has come up with a new model of the moon.
NASA believes that there are several layers inside the moon, and that each layer has its own gravity. They call this the moon's gravitational field model.
But isn't it weird that every time NASA makes a new discovery, they have to come up with a new theory to explain it? Wouldn't it be easier if the moon was onto an artificial structure that was hollowed out long ago? But that's not the only strange thing about the moon. It also emits light. If you search for photos of the moon on the internet, you will find many photos where the moon looks very bright. But the moon doesn't emit any light. It reflects the light from the sun. So how can it ever appear brighter than the sun itself? The moon can never be brighter than the sun. But some photos of the moon do show that it's brighter than the sun. That can only mean one thing. NASA's hiding the truth behind the moon emitting light. In this video, I am not making any wild assumptions. All I'm doing is pointing out the obvious. Let's look at this image. Is this normal? If the moon always reflected the sunlight that hit it, then the dark side of the moon should always be completely dark. But that's not the case. On the dark side of the moon, there are lights shining. These are not auroras. Auroras are atmospheric phenomena, and the moon has no atmosphere. The only explanation is that the moon emits light on its own. And when we talk about the light that the moon emits, we can't forget the strange glow that we see around the moon in some images. Take a look at this one again. What is that glow around the moon? The lunar glow is a real phenomenon. We see it when we look at the moon in the sky at night. But according to NASA, this glow is an illusion. It doesn't exist. The reason why NASA denies that the lunar glow exists is that it would prove once and for all that the moon is an artificial construct. Now let's move on to another fact that NASA isn't telling you. But before that, I ask you to leave a comment below. Do you believe that the moon is artificial? Now back to the topic. The next thing NASA isn't telling you about the moon is that it's getting farther away. Scientists at NASA have known for quite some time that the moon is moving away from Earth. And NASA even has a graph showing how the distance between the moon and Earth will change over billions of years. According to this graph, in about 50 billion years, the moon will be so far away from Earth that it will no longer be able to stabilize our climate. Without the moon, Earth would be a much less pleasant place to live. But this means that the moon is not a permanent celestial body. Eventually, it will leave our solar system. But why is the moon moving away? It must have been placed there by someone or something. And when this someone or something left, he did not do a good job. He forgot to secure the moon in place. If NASA would be honest, they would admit that the moon is not a natural celestial body, but an artificial one. But instead, they came up with a new theory. NASA scientists say that the moon is moving away because of the tilt of Earth's axis. There is zero evidence for this theory. Okay, now I want to share another secret with you. This is the most important one, so pay close attention. The third thing that NASA isn't telling you is that the moon is made of metal. Back in the 60s, NASA brought back lunar samples from the moon. These samples should have been rocks and dust that were kicked up from the surface of the moon when the astronauts landed their spacecraft there. But when scientists analyzed these samples, they found out that they weren't made of rock at all. They were pure metals. The scientists who did the analysis concluded that the moon is a core of a planet that was ripped apart by a massive explosion. The explosion threw the core of the planet into space, where it eventually became the moon. The explosion also created the Earth, Mars, and Venus. All of these planets have cores made of iron and nickel. That's exactly what the samples that were brought back from the moon were made of. Why did NASA lie about this? Why did they claim that the moon is made of rock, when the analysis clearly showed that it's made of metal? There can only be one reason. The truth is that the moon is not a natural celestial body. It's an artificial construct that was put there by an ancient alien civilization. The reason why NASA lied about the moon being made of metal is that this could prove once and for all that aliens really visited Earth in the past. Some people will say that if the moon is artificial, then why does it have craters? Well, those craters were made by comets that crashed into the moon. Back in the day, the aliens used the moon as a shield. They protected themselves behind it. But when the Cold War started, the aliens lost interest in protecting humans, so they left, and they took their shield with them. Some comets were fast enough to penetrate the shield, but most of them were destroyed by the atmosphere of the moon. It was a thick atmosphere that kept the surface of the moon warm and cozy. But over billions of years, the atmosphere has worn off, and now the moon is just a big, cold, dead rock in the sky. Do you think I'm telling the truth? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so yet.